Hey YouTubers, Grimmy here with a video review for Transformers Fall of Cybertron Ultra Magnus, who is basically a blue and white repaint of Optimus Prime. Go figure. But anyway, this is actually a pretty good mold for Magnus, even though High Moon gave him his own form in the video game multiplayer modes. And while it's unfortunate that Hasbro didn't go with that sculpt, this still works pretty well for Magnus. And you'll see why when we get him into robot mode. But for his vehicle mode, you can see he's got his little blaster and the sword on him. And he rolls quite well. He's that Cybertronian truck, that's the same thing that Optimus was. And it looks like a pretty solid vehicle. It's a bit small, just like Optimus, but what can you do? It's just how they're doing the deluxes these days. For a quick comparison, let's put him next to Fall of Cybertron Optimus. And while many will prefer the War for Cybertron Optimus for Optimus Prime, this mold actually does a pretty good job for Ultra Magnus. Or, as I'm probably going to be using him for, Magnum from the Transformers Collector Club comics in the Wings universe, who was basically Ultra Magnus's previous identity. So that's probably going to be what this guy is, my Magnum. But anyway, as you can see, they actually do look pretty different from each other, even if they're using the same sculpt. Let's see, the colors really do set them apart from each other, which is always good. But since they are using the same mold, if you wanted to, you could take the gun from one, put them both with the other guy, and give him two blasters, which actually helps even him out a bit. And that's pretty nice. But I'll give that back to Optimus since he needs a gun. And not much else I can really say. I do like this for Magnus. Let's get him into his robot mode, and we'll go from there. Okay, now that we got Ultra Magnus in robot mode, I think it kind of shows why this mold is actually pretty good for him. I mean, really does nail the look for Ultra Magnus very well. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, well, let's have a look at Generation 1 Ultra Magnus, who's really big, but you can see how you got these big pylons. The smokestacks really do that. Got blue, white, blue, white, blue, white, blue, white, and legs are a little different, but that's okay. You know, it's still a pretty good representation for Magnus. City Commander can also vouch for that. As you can see how he's got the red and blue on the chest, just like this here. It's a little different, but it still works very well. I mean, he's got the white legs and the blue on the legs as well. This one doesn't quite have the white and red on the shins, but that's forgivable. I mean, that still works. For another quick comparison, let's bring a more recent Magnus in, and that's Prime RID Magnus. And while this one has more silver and gray than the current Magnus, you can see he has the blue legs and the gray toes, this one has white toes, and a little bit of red on his chest too. And let's not forget, he has that classic Magnus head. All that's wrong with it is the red eyes, but that's not a major complaint. But anyway, let's get these guys out of the way. They did their part. And let's just take a look at Ultra Magnus's articulation. And he's got a nice ball jointed head, which works very well. Ball jointed shoulders. Somewhat limited just because of the blocky nature of the arms and legs, but they work very nicely, and you got a nice range. Bicep swivel. Hinged elbows, which work to the point of a double joint thanks to the transformation, and swivel at the wrist. He has a waist swivel, ab crunch. He has ball jointed hips, thigh swivel, practically double jointed knees, and some ball jointed toes. So this guy is actually very posable. I mean, they made him small, but dang, they did a good job with the articulation on this figure. And you're going to get a nice bit of posing with him. And you need good weapons to pose him with, too. And he has those. Now, he does have the standard blaster that Optimus Prime came with, but he also has a nice sword. This is the first Ultra Magnus that I know of that had a sword with it, but I like it. And while it's not quite the Magnus hammer, it does do the job nicely. Now, if you were going to, you want to make it bigger, you can, because the weapons combine. And we'll get Magnus back here, and I'll show this off. First, you take apart the sword. It comes in 3 pieces. And then you take your gun. See how this one has a little clip like it was made to hold something? Well, actually you just, it's kind of tricky, but you just, oh, I got it in wrong. Sorry, my bad. It's kind of tricky, but you just press it in like so. Then this part just fits on like that, where this line here will go right onto this line right there. So it just snaps into place. And this part here You can tell by the top where the gun barrel is supposed to go. Now this one, there we go, pops in. It's a little bit tough to get it to pop in, but once you do, you got a nice big sword for Magnus. And it just slides right in his hand like so. And voila. You practically gave Magnus the Star Saber. Now some of his joints are kind of loose, so it's a little hard to get him to pose right with it. But yeah, that sword looks really cool, and I like it. Also, you can store it on his back, thanks to this little port on there. So you can just take it, it just plugs into the back, and you can have him wield it, well, cloud style. Which is pretty cool. Now for one last comparison, here we got Magnus, and here we got yeah, fun times. Here we have Magnus, and here we have Cybertron Optimus Prime. Try to stand this time. As you can see, a quick adjustment on the smokestacks and the paint scheme really helps separate these guys as far as look goes. And you can probably tell it's the same mold, but they both wear it differently, and I like it. Both of these guys should be Voyagers, no doubt. And they're really just too small, but they work. For size comparison, here's first edition Voyager Optimus. As you can see, he kind of towers over these two. But yeah, this would be a good Magnum. Anyway, like this one, it's too small to really be Ultra Magnus, but you can think of them as like Magnum, and it worked out pretty well. Either way, I do like the mold, and it's going to be nice to have Ultra Magnus on my Fall of Cybertron display if I ever get it up. Before we close out, there is one last thing I'd like to show you. You can take this sword, it's nice, be done, and you can actually give it to like first edition Optimus or RID Optimus, and wow, that actually looks pretty cool. So you can actually give Optimus the Star Saber thanks to Ultra Magnus. Unless you want to get the Micron version, which I like, that works for me. This is staying with my Ultra Magnus figure. So, anyway. I hope you guys have enjoyed the review. And I'll catch you another time. Take care, have fun, and bye-bye.